Okay, so here once again we have the top four game. This is game two of the top four, the semi-finals. Again, same decks as the previous match. So Dave H playing Andromeda and myself playing Jinteki Personal Evolution. So we'll play double hedge fund and Ice HQ to start with. So plenty of cash. I certainly seem to luck out a lot with my economy at the moment, but so does Dave. There we are with the Shore Gamble. First click. Using his Andromeda monster hand to great effect. Obviously trying to endeavour to avoid the first turn account siphon. Desperado goes down, click 2. Looks like I've got a Jackson Howard in hand, which is always what you want to see. He's going to run R&D, I believe. Or is he going to run HQ? I think he's running R&D. And he's debating whether to trash. I believe it's a Jackson Howard. What's he going to do? It's the agony of choice. No, he's going to leave it and take the Desperado credit. And final click, he's going to play Fairy. So my Neural Katanas will no longer be that much of a threat from a face check perspective. But that's fine. So we're going to install to the remote. Certainly low on ice, I believe. Oh no, there we go. So Res Jackson Howard and use him to draw. Second click. And then third click. I think I've got two Jackson Howards now in hand. I'm going to put another piece of ice onto HQ. I think it may be a chum, hence the reason why it's going on HQ. So we'll Karate Chop R&D, and doesn't see anything gains a credit. I should hope not, given the amount of R&D runs I ran last game and didn't see a single thing. Until it's too late anyway. So daily cast goes down, third click. So already he's got a decent rig. He looks to have discarded an R&D interface, which he's probably regretting now at this stage. So I've left R&D wide open. Never too bad a thing with Jinteki. The snares can be quite dangerous, as obviously Fetal AI can be something of a bittersweet steel. The Deus Ex going down, so net damage suddenly a bit of a problem. Again, it means that he can take a snare and not have to worry too much. He can obviously then draw back up or remove the tag. He's got options anyway, and Deus Ex certainly gives him that. I know he did mention that he thought it was one of his MVPs of the game, of the tournament. So icing over R&D, installing and taking a credit. I think it's another Jackson Howard in truth. Because you can never have enough Jackson Howards. Oh no, tell a lie, it's a melange, which inevitably he trashes. So I've got a Nisei in hand, by the looks of it. I think I had a couple of agendas here, but lacking the ice. This deck has a fair amount of ice, has about I think 18 pieces of ice, most of which is End the Run. I'm a firm believer in End the Run ice. You should always make people pay to get through your servers, not just get through them at will, with the exception of probably Neural Katana and Chum, which do more damage anyway, and are expensive to break. So Kuroda's down, Deus Ex is down, Fairy's down. He's almost got the full breaker suite, and it's going to be pretty efficient, but he is skint, which is good. So first click, we're going to draw 2. Again, I think looking for ice here to be able to establish the remote server that I need. Another one on R&D. Again, I think it's another chum, otherwise I probably would have set up the remote. But again, at this stage now, barriers are no good to me. You can break through barriers at will, so I don't need barriers on my remotes. So looking for the code gates and looking for the sentries. I can use his fairy. Not the worst thing in the planet, but my Bakus and my Elis, they're suddenly a lot more vulnerable. So Dave drawing up, first and second click. So giving it some thought as to whether he wants to run, maybe trash the Jackson Howard. He has the money, but it will wipe him out. The longer the Jackson Howard's on the board, the more likely it is that I'm going to find the cards that I need to secure my servers. One of the beauties of leaving Jackson Howard out in a completely undefended remote. Tempting target, but at the same time the 3 trash costs can be quite difficult, so he draws again. I'm not sure what he's looking for. Probably some economy cards. And I think that even may be an infiltration that he just used for 2. Don't quote me on that though. And discarding the spare Desperado, which is no longer any use to him. Got a snare in hand, so again it's not too bad. So I'm playing Celebrity Gift 3 and showing him 4, keeping 1 back. So there's a snare, another Jackson, a fetal, I believe, and I think possibly something else, not sure. I think the card I left on the table was the Nisei. I didn't want to make HQ too tempting a target, and I think as a general rule of thumb when doing Celebrity Gift it's always worthwhile leaving 1 behind if you can, unless you desperately need the money. Showing 4 still makes it perfectly profitable, and it just gives them that extra, I wonder what's in there, I wonder if it's an agenda, I wonder if it's an early MP or a Scorched Earth. Sure gamble, first click, oh sorry, second click I believe, I think first click was to draw. Plenty of money now, which is good, and again I think one of the reasons why I used the sure gamble at that the Celebrity Gift at that point was because I wasn't really progressing very far. Didn't have what I needed to continue to advance, but at the same time was relatively safe, and so it seemed like a sensible time to use the 2 clicks to get some cash on the board. Hopefully not making myself too vulnerable to an account siphon. Data sucker goes down. Suddenly his runs are going to become incredibly profitable. With a Desperado and a Data Sucker down, and almost the full breaker sweep though. Fairy will go upon use. So Sentry's still potentially a threat, so there's the first piece of ice over the remote. Install and advance. Possibly telegraphing that it's the Nisei. I doubt I would single advance a Junebug. So taking a risk here, taking the risk of saying I don't think you have a code gate breaker. I would imagine that's probably an Enigma, which we're about to find out. So first click run, second click Enigma. Sorry, second click will then be Enigma. So keeping him out, locking him out. That's a question as to whether he can fetch a code gate breaker, or has one in hand, which I doubt he does, to be able to go in and get the agenda. I think that's one of the reasons why I telegraphed that it was the Nisei, just by advancing it once, because I was confident he couldn't get through. So he's going to Karate Chop HQ. We're going to res the chum for 1, and see what happens next, see if he wishes to proceed. Always something of a quandary. At the very least it's going to make the next piece of ice an absolute fortune to break, regardless of whether it's a barrier, code gate or a sentry. Chum is just so efficient, you can effectively end people's runs for 1 credit because they're just scared of what will come next. I mean, that's an Itchy or something like that, it could do incredible damage. He'd still be able to break it, but he'd have to burn his fairy, and then it's an almost unbreakable server, right up to the point where he gets something like a Femme Fatale to sort. It's a Neurokatana, so it's a shame the fairy was there, but nevertheless he's going to use the fairy to go through and break that. He doesn't want to take the net damage, unsurprisingly. Would have been a substantial amount. He sees the Jackson Howard in hand, and he's not going to trash, so I'll take that back in hand. Doesn't seem to be a lot of point trashing it when there's 1 on the board in use, and he's left it alone. But he will take his Data Sucker token, as I just reminded him in his credit, for a Desperado. To the generous soul. HQ, however, now is pretty secure. He needs to find a Sentry Breaker that isn't Mimic, which does make it a little bit challenging. There's no denying it. So he's got plenty of cash. I've got plenty of cash. R&D is still relatively secure, or at least it is to him. He now no longer has the Sentry Breaker he needs to stop any nasty face checks. Again, this deck running Itchies and Neurokatanas. He's going to run Archives and take a Data Sucker token and credit. Final click. Mandatory draw. We don't need to worry about the rest of that because we're going to advance and score the Nisei with my lovely end the run counter. As far as early game. Oh, discard the account siphon. That was nice. Happy days on that one. Particularly because he can actually get through. There's no end of run on my HQ. And so account siphon becomes more dangerous. I'm expecting to see some same old things coming out shortly. At least it makes him work for it. So that would be a ninja. So again, sentry's now vulnerable. So I'm all the more glad that account siphon went to the discard and takes some money. Oh, sorry, he's running archive, so he gets a data sucker. Tokens. So he's up to 3 data sucker tokens. Makes my sentries a lot more vulnerable. But again, it's still going to cost him. So we will install advance. The lovely traditional Jinteki danger play. Is it a June bug? Is it an agenda? Is he able to get through? He's got a Yogg, so he can run through and find out. Pays his 5, runs through. Breaks 2. At this point I think I've been deciding whether to use end the run. Decided against it. I decided what I'm going to do is make him score the fetal AI. So I do 3 net damage. And get rid of another R&D interface. Not sure, I think it's a special order on top. So it's 2 points all. Fetal AI does sting, which is one of the reasons why I wasn't too worried about doing an end the run there. I figured he'd probably be able to get through. But at the same time I thought it was worth scoring an agenda and slowing him down at the very least, if not. It's the great thing about fetal. You don't necessarily mind it going unless it's match point. Gives you a bit of respite, but it does mean that that remote server now is vulnerable. So taking some money. In no immediate rush. And discarding I think another Enigma there, which is fairly useless now Yogg's on the board. More than fairly useless, completely useless. So the full breaker suite is down. Sure gamble. Now he's going to run on the discarded card, which is again, I think it's the Enigma. Maybe not. Oh no, sorry, it's the Baku. Sorry, it's my barrier, which again is also completely and utterly useless at this stage. Great early game ice, but when you've got a full breaker suite out with data sucker tokens, it's not going to do a great deal of good. So we're going to install here. I think the mistake here was not trashing the Enigma, potentially. Probably should have trashed the Enigma, which I think I'm thinking about doing now. Do I? Okay, maybe I obviously an error there, and obviously I should have trashed the Enigma and lowered the install cost, because there's absolutely no point of having an Enigma on the board, so I could have saved myself a credit there, but never mind. Ah, I think I asked him nicely if I could do that there and take the credit back, which, as the board state hadn't changed, and because he's a lovely chap, he didn't mind. Never say a bad word about him. He's a lovely bloke. Again, I think that was just a sudden realisation that Enigma was going to be broken for free every single turn, and there's absolutely no point of paying the extra credit. With that breaker suite, it's dangerous. I guess one of my only options at this stage really is to potentially, to secure my servers, is ice up archives and clear virus counters. Ooh, account siphon. So he's going to go through first click an account siphon. And he's going to break. And here comes my crucial error of the game. What I believe is my crucial error of the game is that I didn't use the Nisei counter here to end the run and stop his account siphon. Giving him 10 credits was a massive error in judgment. Huge economy swing, and I had the means to stop it. And again, Dave remarked the same thing here, is that he felt that this was the key turning point in the game, and I would have to agree. I think that I should have used my Nisei counter here. I could have had a heck of a lot more cash and stopped him from having over 10 credits. Again, he had the means to break any piece of ice on the board, but he didn't necessarily have the money to use it. He actually uses icebreakers to get through all my servers. And now, however, he's in an incredibly strong position where he has the cash, he has the full breaker suite, he has data suckers, and he has Desperado. And I'm in a very difficult position, so I'm not rezzing, unsurprisingly. He doesn't see anything, but takes a credit to Desperado at a data sucker counter. And he's all over my servers now. There is no doubt about it. He is all over my servers. Chum is the only thing keeping him out from HQ, because Yogg won't break it. And you don't really want to have to use your data sucker tokens on a Chum. It does mean that the Neo Katana becomes certainly decent, quite expensive to break through, with an extra 2 strength and potentially an extra 2 net damage attached to it. And again, I'm only on 3 or 4 credits by the looks of it. Dave comfortably on 12, 13 credits. Able to make a free run on R&D, putting me in a difficult position. But I still have 3 credits, and so if that's a brain trust that's in the remote server, I could score it. Well, that could be the reason why I wasn't rezzing any ice on R&D. But again, there's no combination of ice that prevents him from getting through to that remote. I guess the only other thing that it could be is an Edge of World, which I have the money to trigger. And if it's an Edge of World, 2 brain damage is absolutely nothing to sneeze at. Taking him down to 3 cards in hand at the end of every go. Especially when he knows I've probably splashed for Scorched. A single copy of Scorched. So he's going to run through to HQ and have a look and see if we can pull anything from hand. I'm not sure if I have any agendas in hand here. And it's a snare, which I'll pay the 3 to trigger. He now debating whether to use his Deus Ex, which he will, so he'll avoid the net damage and take a tag. But it's still got 2 clicks left, so it's not that much of a threat. Certainly, the Scorch would have been nice at this point, but he's going to run through onto my remote server, which obviously I have no money to res. I don't even know I'm looking at the ice. Is he going to access? Yes, he is. It's an Edge of World. So either way, it was a difficult one. It was a difficult. I mean, probably again, the smarter play was to not let the snare trigger, and instead to. He was probably going to run on the remote server regardless of what happened, and the 2 brain damage would have been more useful over a longer game. Again, these things are easy to see in retrospect, of course, but sometimes someone pulls a snare, you want to trigger it, you know they're going to use the Deus Ex, but sometimes that's valuable. It does mean, however, that I've only got 1 copy of Edge of World left in my deck, and I could have had a nice little trigger off it. Again, if I hadn't have account siphoned, if I hadn't let the account siphon trigger, it could have been a whole different kettle of fish. That could have been a very dangerous moment for him, running on a snare and then running and taking brain damage in the face. So he runs an R&D and scores. An Issei, not the agenda you want to see go. And get rid of the inside job, I think it is. Yes, I believe it's an inside job. So plenty of data stacker tokens. It's not going to be running out of those anytime soon. Nervously nimming my leg. I know that it's this is a difficult position now. 4 points to 2 with a full breaker suite. Plenty of cash. It's not looking great. So he's drawing up, looking for a silver bullet. He's going to Dirty Laundry Archives. I'm going to see the Neo Katana that I've discarded. And take all his money and his data sucker tokens. Why wouldn't he? So I managed to draw from my side. There's no denying now, this is a very difficult position. He doesn't, the benefit is that he doesn't actually know what the unres dice is on R&D in my remote server, but he also knows I don't really have the money to res anything, so I have to take the cash. So I think I'm now on 4 credits and install. So he's got a question, he's got a wonder, he knows he can get through. He knows he has the money and the icebreakers to get through the remote server no matter really what it is. First of all thing he's going to do is run on R&D, because he doesn't think I'm going to res, and he'd be right. It's a snare, which I'm going to trigger. So, I'll do the 3 damage, and give him a tag. Does mean I now have no money. So, again, none of that ice is going to be able to be rezzed. Really, the snares are a bittersweet thing at this moment, they clean me out. But perhaps I've signalled to him that there's not an agenda in the remote. He draws back up. I take my mandatory draw. I say maybe that's it, maybe I signalled, no, that's not an agenda, that's a trap. Maybe it's an agenda still. I honestly don't recall. In truth, it was a while ago. So I'm going to use all my clicks to cash and discard. Back up to 3. Certainly that if that is an agenda, it's back in play. Could be a Brain Trust, could be a Gillihan's. Although it's unlikely. Again, R&D is pretty much locked down here, which is a problem. He's going to trash it, which is a melange. That's a shame. Would have been quite nice to have seen that. He's going to run the archives and... oh no, sorry, run again. And see... oh, of course he scores an agenda. He scores an agenda every other time. 5 points, no match point effectively. Only a 2-point agenda to take the game. Do -1 net damage. And drawing. And drawing. Not letting his hand size go down too much. There's no need for him to play it too crazily. So, Celebrity Gift, show him all 5. So there's an Eli, there's a Neural EMP, I think there's a Scorched in there, and 2 other pieces of ice that I can't quite make out. No agendas is the point, and nothing for him to, no reason for him to run on HQ, unless it's an account siphon. Does mean I'm back up to a decent amount of credits.
Some of your agendas walk off at a tournament in somebody else's deck.
But the question is, am I take another one? Because you can never have enough money. So plenty of money now in the pot, certainly enough to res any piece of ice that is on R&D. The question is he going to run there? There's no match point, so he could be thinking of the glory. Yep, there we go. So the karate chop action on R&D. He's got enough fire, oh, sorry, it's HQ. Sorry, I do apologise. He's got enough. I don't know what he's looking for there. This is interesting. I'm not quite sure why. He knows full well there's nothing in there. Unless there was and I didn't see it. So that's the Eli. Now he's going to run R&D. We're going to res the Chum, which has been sat there for a fair old while. Quite an ideal little central server setup there, really. Chum on the second row of in each case. And that is a Wall of Thorns, which will be probably replaced in my deck by something nasty when the other data packs come out. But it does mean it soaks up a great many of his data sucker tokens. He can get through though, but it will cost him. It becomes increasingly expensive as time goes on. Certainly makes him use those data sucker tokens, which have halved pretty much in one turn. So he accesses and doesn't see anything. Six data sucker tokens. Still over sort of 10, 15 cash. He's going to emergency shut down the Wall of Thorns. Boo. There goes all my money. 8 credits for absolutely nothing. And that's why he ran on HQ. There you have it. That's one of the reasons why Criminal can be so utterly efficient and effective at stopping any kind of corporation economy. With account siphon, emergency shutdown, forced activation orders, they can just shut you out of any kind of cash. And these are the kind of points where you wish you had a Gillahan scored. That extra credit can make the world of difference. So, I'm going to use all the clicks to take cash. I think I've got a great deal of choice, to be honest, at the moment. I'm not pulling anything else that's worthwhile regardless. So up to about 5 credits, 5-6 credits I think. Not enough to res the Wall of Thorns and R&D, so I have no doubt that he'll, there we go, run R&D first click. So he'll access, and he will do nothing with that, other than gain a Data Sucker and a credit for Desperado. So R&D is vulnerable, there's no denying that, particularly because he knows what's there now, and knows he can break through it with Corroder and Data Suckers. I have a spectator fondling my Dave's stolen agendas. Just to taunt me further. Again, it's not a great board position here, there's no denying it. So he's playing the Plascrete. Again, he knows I've got a copy of Scorched in my deck, and he's not willing to take the chances and take the risks at this stage. Having said that, we know that 2 snares have come out of the deck already. There's only 1 snare left, which could very well be face down in that remote server. I honestly can't remember.
What's happening? Oh, I lost again. Okay. Well, what am I doing again? Oh, I lost again.
So, final click.
Seems to be good, but
Spending the money on Mimic, which is interesting. So suddenly my sentries are vulnerable. Hedge fund, first click. So flush with cash. Plenty of money. Have I got anything to do with it? That's the real question. I could do with getting another agenda squad, there's no denying it. So I'm having a look to see what I've got installed on the remote, potentially looking to maybe replace one, there we have it, and install over it. I can't quite recall what it was. Using Jackson Howard to draw twice. Looking for something to install, probably a Brain Trust, and then discarding. Looking for something to pull out of the bag. Account Siphon first click. Again, he's running a little bit low on cash, he's under 10 now, and although he's got the full breaker suite. So he goes through, he pays the money, and then at the end of the run I say, no thank you, I use my Nisei counter. Admittedly, 1 Account Siphon probably ago would have been more effective. But better late than never. I realised the error of my ways. I think I just completely forgot about the Nisei counter the first time round. The second time round I shall not be fooled. But again, he still has the money to be able to pretty much get through any server at will. He can make the glory run against any remote or against R&D. Just keep the R&D locked the whole time. Wall of Thorns is not going to keep him out.
well, I was going to make sure I didn't want to kind of go over there.
So third piece of ice on the remote server, which makes Edge of World significantly more a threat, and click the cash.
Thanks, Ryan.
Preparing that remote. Seeing if I can get anything in there. I think there's a Fetal AI in hand there. Again, not the agenda you particularly want to have to score. Don't think I've got... I've got 8 credits. I can res it if I wanted. I think that's what he wants me to do. He wants me to res it. But again, with only... I think at this stage I think, well, he's going to get through regardless. And... oh, he does. But it's only a Gillahan's, not match point. I knew he was going to get through, irrespective of whether I rezzed it or not. All it was going to end up doing was cleaning my cash reserves out completely. Oh, sorry. What? 2, 4, 5, 6. I'm not sure why I'm shaking his hand there. 2, 4, 5, 6. Have I made a massive error in judgment here and realised that he actually... I don't know. I think maybe he said he was going to run the remote and there was an agenda in it. But irrespective, he won, went on to the final.